Welcome to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. Today I have with me José Garcia. José, give me your 60-second elevator pitch about who you are.
I'm a professor at Florida, professor of Spanish and Latin American Studies at Florida Southern College, where I've been for approximately almost 20 years. I'm originally from Cuba, and I immigrated to the United States in the Mariel Boatlift. And I have a feeling that that's one of the topics that we're going to be covering in our conversation. And I, as you well know, which you were the editor of, I just published a book recently, which is called Voices From Mariel, an oral history of the 1980 Cuban Exodus. So that summarizes it a little bit. Do you want any other details, or would that be?
No, that's great. You got this inspiration to write a book, and how did that happen?
Okay, so approximately, 2018, approximately close to 10 years ago, 2009, 2010, I had this idea that I wanted to do something on the Mariel Boatlift. As I mentioned before in the introduction, I came from Cuba and the Mariel Boatlift. And being a refugee, that is a topic that is very intriguing to me because of the fact that I was a witness of the Mariel Boatlift. I did a little bit of research, and I found out that despite the fact that it was a massive exodus, the biggest seaborne exodus in the history of Latin America, with approximately 120,000 people left Cuba in 1980 within 6 months, that there wasn't a whole lot of information on it. And I thought, this is a topic that I want to explore for two reasons. Because I think it is important that the world knows what the Mariel Boatlift is. And because I also wanted to, when I immigrated, I was a teenager, and I wanted to explore that side of my immigration experience. Anyway, I did not mention probably the fact that I applied for a sabbatical, and received the sabbatical and went on the sabbatical, and I started getting the stories. It's a long, but that's basically in a nutshell how the idea came up.
Now, you initially published a documentary about this.
That is correct. I finished my sabbatical. I was in the process of editing the stories. I have most of the testimonies from the people that I wanted to interview, including my own testimony. And I mentioned it in one of my classes, or I mentioned it in a few classes, and the students have started asking me, how come you were out for approximately 6 months? I told them what a sabbatical was. And in one particular class, I had a student by the name of Jesse Larson that said, that sounds like a really great story. And in our conversation, I mentioned to him that I really wanted to go back to Cuba and capture that side of the story, what the people in Cuba felt like. And it had been at that point approximately 30 years that I have been back to my country. He right away became really excited about the whole thing and decided that he wanted to do this with me. So he was working at a film company here in Lakeland. He approached him and told him what it was that I wanted to do. And they became just as excited as I was on the story. From there, it took off. That's how the documentary came about. We started raising money. Then they accompanied me to Cuba after 30 years. I was able to publish we were able to get the documentary out. And to our surprise, the first time we showed the documentary, it won an award at the Gasparilla Film Festival. And then after that, we showed it in several other festivals, and we won 3 important awards. And the most important award of those was at the Alexandria Film Festival outside of Washington, D.C., which is a very well-known festival. And it won Best of the Fest, which is considered probably the most important award that you can receive at a festival. Then after I finished that, then I had to go back to the book. So the book sort of went back into, went in the back burner for a while.
What was the hardest part about finishing the book?
I published a book in Spanish, and it was hard deciding what stories I was going to use, how I was going to be able to put it in such a way that it would become an attractive piece of literature, something that people wanted to read. Looking for the publisher, that was also hard, and then ultimately, as you well know, because you helped me doing it, getting the publisher, sending the documents, the manuscript to University Press of Florida. And again, to my surprise, it was something that they wanted to publish for different reasons, including the fact that there was a documentary that went with it, and that it could be used as a teaching tool to talk about to teach about the Mariel Boatlift, which was such an important event. And then editing the book, which I was lucky enough to have somebody like you that finally helped me get the book out in English, which, has been quite an experience, I have to say the least.
I know that your book launch was very successful and it was received extremely well around the world. And you have been able to travel on a book tour. Can you describe the book tour to me?
Well, let me tell you how when I realized that perhaps the book was not just going to be published and it was done with it, that I would be done with it. Shortly before the book was published, I got a couple of calls. I got a few calls from different places. I got a call from Australia, which was probably the most important call. And they had received a copy. The University Press of Florida, they send the book to many places, and sometimes they were looking for books on immigration. They found the book. They got a review copy, and they really were excited about that. And they asked me if I would be interested in traveling to there to talk about the book. Also, another thing that happened that I think really brought a lot of attention to the book was the fact that it was picked up by the American Historical Organization in Washington, D.C., which has two magazines, two scholarly magazines. One of them called Perspectives on History. And this is before the book even came out, before I had even seen the book in my hand, the finished book. And they said they had received a review copy, and that they wanted to also, come out with a feature article on the book. It is a very important magazine because it's sent out to every university around the United States and other parts of the world. And right after that, I received other invitations. So since the book tour started, I've done probably approximately 12 presentations since April, which I have to confess, it's a little tiresome. I have a couple of presentations coming up. It's exciting, no question about it. Last month I was at the Miami Book Fair International. The University Press of Florida invited a few writers, and I was one of the writers that was invited to do presentations there. I ended up doing 2 presentations. I also presented the book in Eastern Europe, in Albania and Macedonia. 2 universities wanted to talk about the book because they had something that was similar to the Mariel Boatlift. And after that, it's been nonstop. I've done presentations also in Maryland, and I've done presentations here in different parts of Florida. Next month, I'm going to New Jersey to the Cuban American Scholarship Foundation that wanted me to talk about the book. And I received quite a few invitations. So it's been an amazing experience and something that is very gratifying. And I want to point out the fact that the book, it's what it is today because of the fact that you helped me, get it to that level, to the level that I got a call when I was in Arizona from somebody at a book club that picked up the book, and they wanted me to do an on Skype presentation. So, I mean, I'm not going to get into all the presentations that I've done. It'll probably take the rest of the the podcast. But it's been a very exciting experience, and it's very gratifying because I feel like I'm getting the message out. I've had quite a few book reviews also on Amazon and other sites. One of the things that the University Press of Florida has done is they really push the book. The book, it's everywhere. You can find the book all over the internet. And one of the things that they mentioned to me in our last conversation at the Miami Book Fair is that it's one of the best. It has been one of their best sellers this year, to my surprise.
You should not be surprised. It's a very, very good, strong, interesting work. And
thank you.
I think you should be very proud of yourself. What do you have in store as far as any upcoming books?
I definitely want to do a book on the on Cuba's special period. That is another part of Cuban history that very few people know about, and that is what happened in Cuba after the fall of the Soviet Union. What the people, I want to be able to capture, like I did with the Mariel Boatlift, the experiences, the testimony of the Cubans that lived through that time, culminating in what was called the Balsero crisis, the rafters, during the Clinton administration, when the wet foot, dry foot law came into effect. 1994 was probably the most important year during the special period. The special period kind of sort of subsided a little bit, but in Cuba, so Cuba has been in a perennial crisis for 60 years. But that particular time after the fall of the Soviet Union, what took place after that, what took place during that time, it's a very interesting time in the history of Cuba. Most people have predicted that that was going to be the end of socialism in Cuba. There was one event, the only event when people demonstrated out in the streets against the government that has ever taken place in Cuba, happened in 1994. And ironically, is on January 1st of this year, it's been 60 years since the beginning of the revolution, 1959. So, wow. Yep. But anyway, that is my next project, something that I'm really excited about, and I've already contacted a few people, including some of the members of the Coast Guard that were involved in the exodus that took place in 1990. By 96, most of the people that had left, approximately 30 to 40,000 Cubans, had already arrived in the United States. So that is my next project. And I hope to be able to publish it again with the University Press of Florida, considering that the book is doing so well. And hopefully I'll have your participation so that the book, it's a good book.
Sounds like a project that I'd like to work on.
Okay, great. Well, you're going to become a Cuban expert at this rate,
All right, now we get to the point of our program where we do our rapid fire questions. These are 3 questions I'm going to ask you that have nothing to do with writing. Are you ready?
Okay, go right ahead.
Texting or talking?
Talking.
Talking. You like the phone? You'd rather pick up the phone?
I like to talk. Yes, but I'm not opposed to texting. I think it's a very it's a great way in the Anglo-Saxon modern world. Texting is a very efficient machine because you can just get things across. So it is. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a great thing, but I definitely am the kind of person that likes to talk.
Spoken like a true professor.
Yep.
What's the last song you downloaded?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What is the last song you downloaded?
The last song I downloaded, my daughter downloaded a whole bunch of songs for me so that I could keep up with what teenagers are doing these days. Honestly, I have not downloaded myself any songs.
Have you listened to any of the songs she's given you?
Yes, I have. She, in particular, wanted me to listen to Camila Cabello's songs.
Okay.
That particular song, Havana.
I like that song. I know it.
But I myself, I haven't really, downloaded any songs. I've been focusing on the book.
That's true. How about your favorite holiday?
My favorite holiday. I would say when that took place, or that I would like to that I have taken, or that I would like to take.
Doesn't matter.
Well, okay. I took a trip through Hungary, Budapest, Vienna, and Prague, approximately 4 or 5 years ago, with my wife, and that was an amazing experience. And it's something that I would like to do again. I think as a result of that, I fell in love with Eastern Europe, and I would like to see a lot more of those countries.
That sounds like an amazing trip. Jose Garcia, I want to thank you very much for stopping by. This is the Florida Writer Podcast. Your host, Allison Nissen. Allison out.
Thank you for the opportunity, Allison.
No problem.
All right.
Jose, how can we get in touch with you?
How can you get in touch with me? You can email me at jgarcia@flsouthern.edu, or they can also email me at JoseGetNFocus, JoseGetNFocus@gmail.com. Email is probably the best way to get in touch with me.
Cuban-born José Manuel Garcia immigrated to the United States during the Mariel Boatlift in 1980. In 2011, he wrote the script and co-produced the international award-winning documentary Voices From Mariel. In the spring of 2018, University Press of Florida published his book titled Voices From Mariel, Oral Histories of the 1980 Cuban Boatlift. For more information about the Mariel Boatlift documentary and book, contact José Garcia at JoseGetNFocus@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Florida Writer Podcast. For more information about the Florida Writers Association, visit us on the web at floridawriters.net.